100%.
So,
Exactly.
when you start looking and getting involved with some of it, it's awesome of what people are doing, and the way people are thinking about sort of change the business opportunities that people are working on, and even those who have started businesses have sort of changed their models a little bit to work to a better opportunity for what people are discovering, I suppose.
How do you mean, mate? What do you mean by that?
Oh, look, it's sort of, I've got friends who have started businesses for monetary gain, ultimately, and then they've realised that other people are changing the world by their business models. So they've incorporated things like, buy a meal and they donate another meal.
Right.
So instead of just having that monetary factor when they started the business and run it that way, well, now they're basically donating food at the same rate that they're actually being purchased.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, and there's things like shoe models, which that obviously started as a social enterprise originally, but there's different ones around the place that people have started to change their business models to incorporate social responsibility.
What do you mean by shoe models?
There's a shoe company. The name escapes me. Basically, it's the same deal. You buy a pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes.
Yeah, right.
So this model where it's sustainable for them based on the fact that the people who can afford to buy those shoes do so for the fact that they want the shoes, but then the company itself donates those shoes back to the community for others who can't actually afford shoes.
Yeah, nice. Oh, cool.
So, and they've created the model where it just keeps giving.
So, mate, that's a good tie-in to what you're doing, I'm assuming. Tell me how that eventuated, the Sprouting Good idea.
Yeah, look, I noticed your questions you sent us. So to give you an understanding of my background, I started out in retail, was my first working opportunity. So I was working retail for 13 years. Most of that time was spent managing retail stores for Toys R Us. So
cool.
Through the ranks and enjoyed the time that I had there. And then from there, I was looking at different opportunities. So I opened up a online dating business. Things like social events, so get a small group of people, 10-pin bowling, horse riding, this sort of stuff, and get that involved. And I ran that for a couple of years, which during the time I found a business networking group called The Entourage.
Yeah, with Jack Delosa, yeah.
Yeah, so I was in their second year program, and it grew rapidly. When I joined, there was 30 of us, and then within about 6 months, there was 90.
Wow.
So had fun with them for about 2 years, learning about the different business models and stuff. And one of the things, I met Travis Bell, the bucket list guy.
Yeah, no, Trav, yeah.
So yeah, and whilst working with Trav, I was looking at different ways to give back. And one of the things that he was forcing us sort of into was looking at charities. He was looking at his own charity at the time, and what I was looking for was not too much to start my own charity, but to look at joining another charity, because one of the gaps that I see is the technology space for charities. They're behind by about 5 to 10 years when I was speaking to them about how they introduce and use technology to raise funding to give back to social causes.
Got it.
And while speaking with them, it was very hard to get them to come to the same page of where technology actually is and how to implement it within the charity. Many wouldn't even speak to me. Those who I spoke to, I had to speak to their technical people, and they looked at me blankly like, is that actually viable? Can you do it?
Yeah, okay.
And, what I was looking at doing at the time was, the old Nintendo 64 cartridges with 100 different games on them.
Yeah, I'm that old, mate. I remember that, yeah.
Well, think about this. Think about an app that you can actually raise funds for a charity based on the multiple game playing. So in other words, you download an application and then you can play the games within that application. So, for example, as Harvest, you might drive the yellow van around collecting food, right? And within that game, you collect money and you spend money within that game. And think about World Vision. You could build a village, right? As you do that, you're raising money for World Vision within the same application. So it's not an app for an individual charity, it's multiple charities. And you then can select what charity you actually raise money for. The technology is there. You can actually build the scenario into the application, and it's not. Now, to give you an understanding, the gaming.
Well, hang on a sec, just so I can catch up. So the app, I'm playing the app. I'm running around picking up food and whatnot. How am I actually giving money to the charity?
So, have you actually played any of the games on your mobile phone?
Well, I know of games like Pokemon and that.
Yep. For example, Farmville. Let's say the gaming industry is worth $10 billion a year, right? Yet nothing is in the real world. $10 billion is spent virtually.
Got it.
So, for example, Homer, The Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest grossing games. It's a free download, right? And it's one of the biggest games raising revenue, right?
Wow, never heard of it.
What happens though is Homer's destroyed the power plant. You have to rebuild the power plant, and you have to rebuild Springfield. So to build, let's say you build their house, right? Their currency in the game is known as donuts. So let's say one donut is $1.
Yeah.
US dollar, right? So it may cost you 10 donuts to rebuild their house. So that's 10 US dollars that you have to spend to rebuild their house. Or you can wait and 24 hours and the house builds itself, for example.
Ah, I see. Got it.
So people don't have to spend the money to play the game.
Yeah.
But it's time versus money.
And humans are impatient, right?
Yeah. So some people will spend the $10 to build that house.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that they've got $10 and they don't want to wait to play the game.
Yeah. Okay.
So, for example, something like Oz Harvest, you may have to collect a basket of food from a Woolworths. But you can't collect it until you actually pay to collect it, because there's another truck in the loading dock.
Got it.
So to move that truck, it may cost you one donut. So then that money that you're spending within that game goes directly to the charity to raise funds for the charity.
Got it.
But
all right. Go on.
The reason that this is viable is based on the fact that you can raise money for the charities without having to ultimately spend money, and you can also communicate to your donors directly. So within these apps, you can have YouTube videos embedded. So think about this from a World Vision perspective. Their current platform, right, is that they send postcards to villages of the kids. So you sponsor a child, $25 a month. You get a postcard every several months from that child saying, this is what I've done. Think about this, right? You're playing that game, and a YouTube clip comes up of a child who's walking to school 25 kilometers every day with no shoes. And at the end of the YouTube clip, you have $5 shoes.
Yeah,
this
right.
would motivate somebody to actually pay the $5, right, to actually buy them shoes, as opposed to having a postcard sent to them in the mail, which isn't going to motivate them to jump on the computer, buy a pair of shoes, and spend more money, because they're already spending $25 a month.
Got that. Yeah, that makes sense.
From a charity perspective, you don't want to force people to actually spend money, but you also need to emotionally connect with them. Ultimately, within inside, a charity is a business. On the outside, it's all fluffy and social good. But to run it, you need to run it like a bank, right? And this is the thing, is a bank says, hey, we need to cut funding. We cut jobs. A charity goes, we need to save money. We need to raise more. To raise more, we need to spend more.
Got it.
Just doesn't make concept. So ultimately, when speaking with Trav, one of the things that I had, one of my frustrations was getting these charities to actually understand what I was trying to offer them. Right? It was a program that was going to be privately funded, so therefore it wouldn't cost them anything. All I needed was the number of charities to be on board, yet they wouldn't actually even meet with us.
Yeah, right. And did you present the similar way that you've just presented to me? Did you paint that picture?
Well, a lot of them I couldn't even get to in the room to actually speak to them.
Yeah, right.
So they're so overworked, right, and shortages on what they're trying to achieve. They don't have time to actually meet with somebody who is trying to tell them something they don't understand.
Yeah, they haven't got time to make more time. Mate,
Correct.
this is really interesting. But tell me how this ties into what you're doing at Sprouting Good, and is it doing that?
Yeah, that's the next step. Look, and ultimately, while talking to Trav, I got frustrated and I dropped the concept at that time to start making charity. Based on the fact that I could see them outdated models not getting down to the root cause of what they were trying to achieve. A lot of the charities just funding the problem ongoing. So one thing that I looked at and around the world is urban farming, rooftop farming, which isn't happening in Australia in the main. And one thing that we look at is that, hey, we need food to live and survive, but is our food model currently sustainable long term? And if you follow what this United States has done, the answer is no. Right? We're basically a little brother to the States. Right? We follow their methods, and we were leading our agricultural industry for many years. But now we've actually destroyed that industry quite badly. Right.
Scott, just a sec, mate. Go back a step. Tell me what urban farming means.
So urban farming is traditionally using permaculture techniques. So currently at the moment, our traditional model of farming, right, is one type crop used with pest control to maximize the growth, right? Yeah. So in other words, you'll get all your spinach to grow in one spot, right? But the problem with spinach is it's a sacrificial plant, right? Grubs will eat it. It will get destroyed. So what they use is they use pesticides and insecticides over the top of it. Permaculture would actually use cross-cropping, which would mean that you'd have different flowers in there as well to stop the pests from attacking it. But the problem with that is it reduces the profitability of that crop because you minimize the space. Plus, you also will lose some of it still, whereas insecticides and pesticides are effective. But what that does is they actually damage the land. So they soak into the soil and they basically poison the soil. So what happens over a period of time is that the quality of your crop deteriorates. So as they found in the States, what then happens is industrial and commercial and residential is built on those lands because they're no longer viable for farming lands. So you have a look in Australia and go, well, we've got so much land. Urban farming isn't really necessary.
Exactly.
Right? You have a look at what we're doing out Camden Way, right? Camden is a prime example of farming land. Now it's residential. You have a look at Badgerys Creek. Badgerys Creek's going to an airport. It was farming land. You have a look at where Wet and Wild is in Sydney, where Australia's Wonderland around that area used to be. It was farming land. But the land itself is no good for farming anymore. Right, so ultimately it goes to commercial property.
And is your point that that's happening more and more?
It's happened at a faster rate based on the fact that our population's gone up and our use of pesticides and insecticides has increased.
So at this time in 100 years, where will we be in regards to our farming?
No idea. No idea. I couldn't tell you within my lifetime or a kid's lifetime as to whether or not we're sustainable in our food supply and in our land. Right. At the moment, if we continue with our growth rate that we're going, we will eventually run out of place to grow our food if we're not looking at alternative models. The rest of the world has realised this. Right? They're looking at alternative models and are doing it. You'll have a look over in New York. There's a combination between Dock & Greens and Whole Food Markets, and there's a greenhouse now sitting on the top of their supermarket.
And is that because like that they didn't envisage that happening. It just, they got to a point where there's no more space. So it's like, shit, now we better find a way to grow our fruit and veg, right?
Positive. Yeah, straight away. That's what's happened.
Okay,
Right.
so tell me about this rooftop idea.
So ultimately, in Australia, we have land, right? But this is educating people. Where do you get? You look fairly healthy from the webcam. Also,
It's all the filters, mate.
So where do you get your fresh produce from?
Like majority just from your big players, Woolworths, Coles, sometimes from a farmer's market, but not regularly enough.
And you eat apples?
Sure.
And would you be a little surprised if I told you your apple's probably up to a year old?
Well, up until about a week ago, I would have been, but from chatting to people like yourself and a few others, I'm starting to find out this sort of information.
Do you also know that an apple holds its nutrient content for 2 to 3 months?
So the apple you're eating that's a year old is nutrient free.
And the chemical that they use is called methylcyclopropylene, which is known as Smart Fresh. Now that was first used on on food, I believe in 2000, and it was registered for human consumption in 2002. So you have a look at the timeline, right? You think you've been eating it for years and it's all health and safety and all this sort of stuff. It's been within the last 15 years.
Got it.
Now you look at the terms of rate of health decline in mental health, right? And you are looking at things like where's this mental health problem coming from? I work as a security guard in mental health, right? And undoubtedly there's an increase in mental health. Whether you call it, I'm seeing people as young as 30 with dementia and Alzheimer's. 30. Now you think about that as in relatively to your age. If you now didn't know who your family were or who any of your friends were, Alzheimer's and dementia were considered to be an old person's disease.
Exactly. Yeah.
In the 70s plus, right? Now they don't know what's going on, and for me personally, my belief is around our food because it is no longer nutrient. It's not filled with nutrients because of the age. Now you come across a supplement industry, $1 billion industries come across based on the fact that we no longer have nutrients in our ground. That there is a load of rubbish. It's actually the fact that the food that you're eating is old.
And that's even if you are eating proper, fruit and veg, as opposed to, a lot of people out there that are eating quick, fast, takeaway type, meals, right?
That's correct. And you have a look at the timelines of things. So our processed food industry, it's modern times, right? But what they're using is two processed ingredients called salt and sugar, right? And what they do is they use them in the products to take the water content out of the product. So it dehydrates it. By dehydrating the product, you then end up with a longer shelf life. However, what are we made up of?
Water, essentially.
60 to 70% water. You know what's funny, right, is muscle's about 60% water. Fat, 20%. Okay, so a processed item that you purchase is 10 to 20% water, right? So fresh produce is 60, 70% water. So you talk an unhealthy person with fat, 20%. You talk about a healthy person, 60 to 70%.
60 to 70. All right. So now that you've depressed everyone, tell me what was the catalyst for you to go, all right, I need to do something about this, and how did Sprouting Good kick off?
Well, look, I've got autistic nieces and nephews, so I've got three. I've got one niece and 2 nephews who are all autistic. And my belief is it's around your food that actually causes the issues. Now, don't get me wrong, there's no proven medicine around what actually causes autism, but I think it's a large factor that comes into it. And that's one of my motivating factors is around the education of what we're eating. Most people don't understand where their farms are. They don't understand where their produce is coming from and what they're eating. Most people are left to believe, you know, things like 97% fat-free is healthy. You know, when ultimately to lose weight, all you need to do is up your hydration. But the reason you're dehydrated is because you're eating processed foods, which ultimately will dehydrate you. Anybody who wants to lose weight just needs the education around what they're eating. You don't need to go to the gym and work out. You don't need to exercise. You need to know what you're putting in your body and the reaction to it. Ultimately, if you're hydrated, your body will balance everything out, right? That's how we get rid of things, right? But the problem is if you're dehydrated, your body goes into shock. So when your body's in shock, it stores everything. Right, and this is the thing, is where mental health comes into it, and all that sort of factor is it's all the chemicals don't balance out if you're dead. And ultimately that's what our current food situation is doing to us. It's dehydrating us, which is affecting our mental health and our physical health. And that's a concern for me, because in the majority, I'm seeing people with bags of medications coming in, and the medications are no longer working.
Yeah. So did you then start to go, all right, well, I can grow this stuff because of your nieces and nephews and things, or did you see this as a bigger national thing that you could do, or was it just for initially for home use?
Look, I can give you the scary rundown for where my thoughts are. My thoughts are a long-term process, and this isn't something I share with everybody. My way of looking at it is that I've grown up looking at commercials of children dying from malnutrition. Right, for the last 30 years, from what I can remember, is that people are dying. Children in these areas of poverty are dying from malnutrition. How can we build an aircraft in 18 different countries and for billions of dollars, right, and get it in the air, and we can't eliminate malnutrition in children?
Yeah.
So for me, it's, hey, there's charities who are raising $20 million a year, right, to donate onto these areas of malnutrition in children, and we're still seeing it. Why? How is that possible? So with urban farming, and the way that I see it, is technology. So technology in our food production and what other countries are doing around the world has allowed us to reduce this problem in a major way. And the fact is to get people to understand. So to wrap it all up, it comes from food ultimately, right? But I don't see why people should be short and not be able to have access to healthy produce.
Got it. So tell me how the sprouting good idea, how could I do that? How could I do that at my house today?
Yeah, so ultimately, the charity itself is set up to help homeless youth, right, through employment. But we also do education programs too. So it depends on what you want to do. If you want to start growing at your house, there's a couple of different models that you can implement depending on what you want to do. We look at aquaponics and hydroponics because they're highly automated. So what we find teaching people is around the fact that people don't have time to maintain a standard garden. So if you use technology to actually automate your system when you build it, all you need to do is plant and pick. And ultimately, if you are passionate about what you're eating, you're going to do the picking pretty easily. It's replanting and the maintenance that goes into it. So you just need to take the time to do it. But if your system's not automated, chances are it's going to die and people aren't going to automate it.
So is that what your I don't want to call it I'll start again. Is that what your model does? Is it automates the process for the mum and dad and kids to just pick and away they go?
Yeah, it's basically using technology to help you grow it and educate what you're eating. You know, something that I heard was the fact that we eat a lot to do with our memory. So if you're eating something, you're normally remembering a good memory that you have of when you ate that item.
Got it.
Now, if you grow that item, you have the memory of actually growing it, and it can taste different when you eat it. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I can tell you this: if you grow your own cherry tomatoes and you go to the supermarket and you buy cherry tomatoes and you
You're going to taste the difference.
you can taste the difference.
100%.
So, and it's not just a freshness perspective; they taste completely different.
And as you say, the experience is a lot more positive when you're doing that whole journey, so to speak, yourself.
Yeah, and we notice from those who are disadvantaged, and there's a very therapeutic thing about growing your own produce or growing your own plants. You know, it's ultimately like raising a child.
Got it.
But the responsibility is obviously not there. If it dies, you can replant it, but you still have the responsibility to nurture it and see it come along the way. If you don't water it, you don't feed it, it will die. But,
so give me the one sentence version of what it actually is that you offer in Sprouting Good.
To educate and inspire people to live a healthier and happier life through food.
But I get that 100% just from what you've been saying. I really get that passion. But tell me what the product actually is.
The product itself, look, at the moment, it's in different venues. What we're working on is full-size rooftop farming, right? So that will produce pesticide and insecticide-free food for the community, whilst incorporating education around how to do it at your house.
So are you saying I'm going to be able to grow the fruit and veg on my roof?
Not on your house, but in your actual backyard or in your front yard or indoors, depending on where you want to grow it. At the moment, obviously, the challenge of growing on a rooftop in a house is the fact that our houses are slanted.
Yeah, so you're talking more the unit type situation.
Yeah, so we're talking shopping complexes, unit blocks, car parks.
Got it.
So
okay, but people can do that in their own backyard or inside or whatever.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same method. Basically, it's growing all your food at home that can sustain a full family.
Got it.
And that may include building it into your own kitchen. You know, having a wall where that actually grows in your kitchen is doable.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anywhere pretty much on your block of land is possible. And that's the education that we want to give to people, as well as the health perspective. What are you truly eating at the moment? And look, it comes down to people's own health. I don't want to push things on people if they're healthy and they don't have an issue. If you're on medications and you're not feeling yourself and you want to change your life, food's a good place to start.
Most definitely, especially before supplements and pills and potions and whatnot. All right, so cool. So from this, what we're talking about, there has been some media exposure. You've been on Better Homes and Gardens, for example. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, look, it was an email sent to Better Homes and Gardens. Basically, that came across Jason, one of the presenters' desks. He was interested in the model of what we were doing and wanted to come out and see what the school was doing. So we work out at Seven Hills High School teaching students about sustainable food production.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that the students that we had were their first agricultural class out there. So they were Year 9 students. And yeah, he just wanted to come out and see what we were doing out there. And we've got a 20-foot shipping container which has aquaponics and hydroponics on it.
Wow.
So the kids
on the school grounds?
Yeah, on the school grounds.
Yeah, that's cool.
The greenhouse sits on top of the container, and that's pretty much an automated system. We also built a permaculture area for them which houses chooks. We've got one little rabbit out there at the moment, and they've got 4 major garden beds that they can plant into.
Wow.
So it's an ongoing project out there, and something that we want to build onto. And you know, I had a Year 8 student who, I tell this story a little bit, but I had a Year 8 student who was in the greenhouse with us, and I gave him a fresh strawberry, freshly picked, and she bit in. I
saw this on your website. Yeah, go on.
It was the first time that she'd ever had a fresh strawberry.
Yeah.
And you're talking a 13, 14-year-old student who, that just surprised me. You know, we saw Jamie Oliver in America, you know, on his series of trying to show kids what a potato looked like, and they couldn't identify it, yet they could identify a potato chip.
Wow.
I don't think in Australia we were so bad.
Yeah, 100%.
But I have students who are eating, mint and parsley freshly off the wall, who have never had it before. So, and one of the challenges we have at the moment is getting what we grow to be used in the cooking and the feeding, because I don't understand what it actually is that they're eating.
Yeah, so that whole journey from planting, picking, cooking, eating, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's so awesome that you're getting involved in the schools. Do you have a vision to do more of that?
Yeah, look, it's the different programs that I have. So ultimately the different stages are the school programs was mainly started because we had a prototype model, and that was within the 20-foot shipping container. So to get multiple schools on board to understand what aquaponics and hydroponics are, there's not many schools doing it. They have their gardens, and the upkeep of the garden generally is hard to do. So to automate a system and show them how to do that, it makes it funky for the kids. We can incorporate things like apps and technology in our systems, so the kids are more involved with it. What I find is a lot of them plant the seeds into the garden, it grows, and then it dies. They don't actually utilize it from there.
Got it.
So getting a system more such where they actually use what they're growing and eating it, that's what we're looking at. There are some fantastic models already in schools that are helping people to grow their own produce at school. To get the kids to take it home and do it at home is
teach their mum and
what
dad,
my objective is.
100%.
Yeah, and that's where a full-scale model will help us involve the community more and get people, because ultimately what people do is they try to grow at home, right? And the first stage is everything dies. It's given. So many people just give up from there. But that's the environment getting ready for what you're growing.
Got it.
So ultimately, everything that you grow in the first place will die. The second time, it will get eaten. Right? You'll have pests.
Right.
The third time, you'll share a little bit with the pests, and you'll get a little bit.
You take some yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Fourth time, it'll be a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it will never be perfect.
Exactly.
Right. But
it's like anything, right? It's like anything you start on.
But the thing is most people give up the first or second time.
Of course, that's human.
It's going to take you 4 goes to get it right. And if you don't have help and you don't have expertise showing you what to do, it's not going to work.
Got it.
And then you add in the fact that there's crazy weather. I don't know. Looks all right up there for you guys at the moment, but down in Sydney,
you guys are getting hammered with heat.
It was 45 degrees the other day. And now I think it's down to 30. Yeah. It's just crazy. So trying to grow and keep it. They were talking about Valentine's Day being tomorrow, and the roses not being right because most of them have died in the last two days.
Getting burnt.
Yeah,
wow.
So they're dehydrated, much like what we end up being.
Exactly. Mate, this is a really, really good topic, and it's one of those things where this is just a little seed, right, of the type of discussions that could come out of this. But given the time situation, I wanted to ask another question, and maybe it'll stay on the same topic, I'm not sure. But the question is, for you, what's one of the world's biggest problems?
Look, I think our problem comes to mental health and our physical well-being. The challenge is how do we, excuse the language, but how do we cut the crap that we're being sold? There's items that in food products that, for example, you have a look at wheat crops, for example, right? Roundup, it will be thrown out there at different times, right? The World Health Organization's come across it as being possibly causing cancer, right? It was first used in the late 90s on wheat crops. And now you have a look at gluten intolerance, came about in 2008. We've been eating grains for centuries, right? And all of a sudden, people can't eat wheat or gluten, and we find that something's causing it in 2008. So it's what's in our food is my issue, and what it's actually doing to our bodies and our mental and physical well-being? I think that's our challenge.
Great question.
Access to fresh, healthy produce, where we've gotten so smart with our technology in the food, but we're so naive to change what we've done when it's actually making mistakes and errors. And when science is proving it wrong, people are coming back and saying, "Oh, no, it's not." And we're the guinea pigs for it. You have a look at the hospitals and you have a look at the people coming through and what's coming through. It's repetitive. It's the same stuff that's coming through. And people are going, we don't know what's causing it. Why? Then when you see sick people in hospital getting McDonald's because they don't like the hospital food that's been given to them. A KFC coming with buckets of chicken and wondering why they're in hospital feeling sick.
100%.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think if I can address that, I think what it does do is start to develop other questions as well. For example, why aren't people like yourself and nutritionists and dietitians and whatnot getting together and chatting to your GPs and your specialists and, you know, government groups and having these collective conversations?
Yeah, that starts me on a bit of a conspiracy topic. Have a look into that, mate.
We might leave that for another conversation.
I'll sum it up. If you have a look into the information of it, right? Yeah, it's all profit. All comes back to money.
Exactly.
So if being unhealthy is more profitable than being healthy, you know, we're sold into a negative state. Being in a negative state is more profitable than people being in a positive state. And what I mean by that is you look at the TV and the shows, people dying, people being shot, the news, all focus on negativity. And the question is why? And the answer is because people will buy more when they're emotionally negatively motivated.
Sure.
Right?
We'll run away from pain more than we will towards pleasure, right?
Correct. And that's where you have a look at it. There is money in people being sick and unhealthy and negative and sad and depressed.
Got it.
It's a sad thing to think about, but that's where we're at.
It's such an interesting conversation, mate. Let's wrap it up there. If somebody wanted to get into contact with you, and and I appreciate your time, one, but two, I also appreciate the conversation that we've had. It's very, very interesting. If somebody wanted to contact you from here, what's the best way for them to do that?
Look, any technology way, really. They can email me at scott@sproutinggood.com.au. If they wanted to,
and I'll put that across the bottom of the screen too.
Yeah, if they want to give us a call, I can give you my mobile number as well.
I'll put that up on the screen after as well.
Have you got that, or you want me to give it to?
Yeah, just text it message it to me later, mate. But Scott, really appreciate your time, mate. Fantastic conversation. Now, you've got that exercise bike behind you. I'm guessing in the 40-degree heat, you're going to do a few Ks now, are you?
There's a treadmill there too.
Oh, there you go. You're cross-trained. Awesome,
yeah,
mate.
You've got to keep fit and healthy.
Exactly. Appreciate your time, Scott.
No worries. Thanks, Matt.
Bye.